Welcome back. Now, according to the latest TransUnion Africa 2025 Consumer Pulse study, South Africans remain financially resilient. Ayesha Hatea, Director of Research and Consulting at TransUnion, joins us to unpack how this resilience is being managed by looking at key trends in household financial management, credit activity, and vehicle financing. Ayesha, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. And let's start there. You know, we always talk about a resilient South African consumer and how we're able to adjust to different circumstances. And I guess that's the case in the first quarter study as well.
Yeah, 100%. So the Consumer Pulse study is a quarterly study that goes out to consumers, and it examines this key trend in consumer financial behavior. So it also provides us insight on how these consumers handle these changes in economic pressure, how their attitudes adjust to the way they use their disposable income.
And while we saw that, you know, the VAT hike has been scrapped, the first quarter was the period where we heard of a VAT increase. First, we heard of a 2 percentage point increase, then a 1 percentage point increase, with half of that being implemented this year and the next half being implemented next year. What was the consumer's attitude around that within the first quarter period?
Yeah, so 82% of them actually told them that the rising inflation is a real concern for them and their wallets. And so they're looking for ways on how they can actually cut back on their own spending and cut down on the discretionary spend. And then they're saying that they want to, 43% of them told us that they're actually going to reduce, you know, some larger purchases that they potentially had planned. So they're quite conscious about, you know, the impact that that would have had on their wallet. And I'm sure it still stays at the back of their mind and watching how they spend and how they use their disposable income.
And let's delve deeper into that, because it does seem that even though consumers are resilient, they are cautious. Some even saying they don't expect to see salaries to increase. Walk me through that.
Yeah, so they are telling us that, you know, they are concerned and they are worried. 42% of them actually told us that there's at least one of their bills that they won't be able to meet in the near future. And so we asked them, like, how do they counter, what are they looking for, and how they're looking to counteract that. And 30% of them is telling us that they're probably going to apply for new credit. We know 52% of them are using a buy now, pay later function. But also 25% tell us that they're going to start dipping into their savings. So they are cautious that they need to start finding alternative ways to start covering those bills and compensate for the shrinkage in the income that they're seeing.
Is there nervousness around, you know, taking on more debt? I mean, I know with the buy now, pay later option, no interest is really applied there. But when it comes to credit cards or personal loans, surely there's some sort of, you know, concern and nervousness when it comes to taking on new debt.
So 37% of them told us that they do plan on taking new debt over the next year. But I think it's important for consumers to understand their current debt sort of and what their portfolio looks like. And it's important for them to engage with their lenders. So we know that the lenders do not want them to default. So if they are struggling and if there are options, it's important for them to actually have those conversations with the lenders to look at things like respreading and adjusting installments just to get that relief in these sort of monthly bills.
And talking about that, Ayesha, what have you seen in terms of trends around debt consolidation?
So we haven't tackled debt consolidation particularly, but it's definitely an option for the consumers. It's actually, you know, it's a good opportunity for them to make sure that they do have the right interest rates and they are paying the right installments and it's in line with their affordability. So once again, my advice to the consumers is actually have those conversations with their lenders to make sure that it's within their means and they don't end up defaulting on any of the credit.
And you know, we talk about consumers being cautious, but also opting to take on new debt. We are seeing that in the vehicle market as well. Talk to me about some of the trends playing out there.
Yeah, so interestingly, one of the new questions we added to the study this year was if anyone is planning to take out a vehicle or purchase a vehicle and take out lending to back that vehicle over the next 12 months, what sort of vehicle are they looking for? And 36% of those respondents actually told us that they're looking at a hybrid vehicle, they're opting for a hybrid vehicle. And that again talks to, how they're looking at affordability and being vulnerable to increases in the petrol prices and having that alternative in terms of the affordability. But also, I think there's that sort of environmental consciousness that's coming through to the consumers as well.
And what have you seen when it comes to, the second-hand vehicle market? I mean, when you look at new vehicle sales, we only started seeing an increase in those numbers from around December 2024, with the second-hand vehicle market remaining the winner. What have you seen when it comes to that?
So at the moment, the ratio is for every one new vehicle, we sell about 1.36 used vehicles. And I think the trend is shifting towards new vehicles as we see more affordable vehicles coming into the market. So we're seeing that some of the sort of prelim results coming out of quarter 1 this year is that ratio is actually getting smaller with the affordability of new vehicles actually getting better.
And what have, when it comes to the outlook, do you expect to see maybe even more improved sentiment come the second quarter, considering that we also got that VAT hike U-turn?
Yeah, so I think with the VAT U-turn, there's definitely more disposable income for our consumers, and so it's really dependent on how they adjust their spending habits to cater for that. I think there'll still be a little bit of cautiousness going in to the rest of the year. Obviously, a lot of the inflation is dependent on the commodity prices and exchange rates that's coming along. So I think there's a lot to come, but I think, for at this point in time, consumers just need to be aware what impacts their pockets, what's going to impact their disposable income, and just make sure they're budgeting efficiently so they don't get caught off guard if we see some of these changes coming in. We know that it's going to be a busy year economically this year. We've got another MPC meeting coming up at the end of May. So we're all holding thumbs, that we get as much as relief as possible. But for now, we just need to be conscious of what those things mean for us and how do we adjust our spending and our budgets to make sure that we maintain what our sort of our households.
And talking about that, Ayesha, from your reading of the consumer study, are consumers and households taking, budgeting, their spending habits seriously? Are we also seeing savings increase, perhaps?
Yeah, so we saw that 58% of respondents told us that they actually going to start increasing their savings. I think that's really good behavior. Again, it talks to that consciousness. Also, with regards to their credit reports, 1 in 3 clients or consumers actually check their credit report on a regular basis. And that's also they're actively monitoring their credit records. They're actually seeing what does it mean, what are their behaviors affecting them. But also 34% of them are conscious about, fraud and the impact that they might be impacted. So keeping an eye on your credit report, keeping an eye of, what will affect your sort of wallet and your spend and your credit profile is very important. And that consciousness is definitely coming through the survey as well.
And when it comes to seeking help, are we also seeing households, consumers perhaps engage more with financial planners?
Yeah, so we encourage that. We definitely encourage that. We talk to that in terms of, have that conversation with your lenders. If you're seeing that you are stuck and there is sort of reasons that you won't be able to meet your goals for the next year, to have those conversations with your lenders in order to make sure that arrangements can be made for you to meet those obligations.
All right, Ayesha, thanks so much for your time and joining us this afternoon. That was Ayesha Hatea, Director of Research and Consulting at TransUnion.